Hi friends, please close your eyes for a bit. So, good evening friends. How many of you tried the third assignment and got perturbed by it? Found it like far tougher than the previous assignments? So that is expected. Don't worry about it. We will be discussing several of those questions. Secondly, most of these questions were application based, which is not the nature of the typical UPSC question. Okay? For some unknown reason, UPSC has been asking application based questions from Parsons and Merton, specifically Merton. Okay? Over the past few years. But worry not, that's not for other topics. And secondly, we will try to understand how do we attempt these kind of questions through these examples. Also, rest assured it won't be the same question being repeated. For example, if they've asked you to explain fashion in society using Merton's theory of reference group, they might ask you to again apply reference group, but surely not again on fashion. Right? They'll ask you to apply it to explain something else. So, we will try to understand how to approach such kind of questions. Also with these specific examples, how these particular questions have to be addressed, but more importantly, how do we approach these kind of questions. Long story short, घबराइएगा नहीं. ठीक है? These can be and will be managed, and these should be far and few in between. ठीक है? We'll not be discussing them today. धन्यवाद. We'll not be discussing them today. We'll be discussing them maybe like tomorrow, day after, whenever. ठीक है? But in the class, I'll be taking out some time to discuss them. ठीक है? Also, the last thing we had covered was Merton's theory of deviance and completed Merton. One small portion is remaining there, which is क्या बोलते हैं उसको? Criticism of Merton's theory of deviance. How do you like his theory of deviance, by the way? बढ़िया है? Or not? No? क्या? What's wrong? You naysayers? What is your objection to Merton's theory of deviance? क्योंकि oppose करना है इसलिए कर रहे हो? कुछ तर्क या लॉजिक तो होना चाहिए. बेटी? नहीं, he does it mostly for the negative connotation only. His understanding is also similar to that. Brother? Rejected the psychological explanations, absolutely. लिखिए. So one criticism, or more than criticism, should we say limitation, of Merton's theory is that he developed his theory in the context of American society. His theory was developed to explain deviance in American society, so its application in other social contexts, in other societies may be somewhat limited. ठीक है? I repeat, Merton's theory was developed in the context of American society, deviance in American society. So, it may not be very useful to understand deviance in other social contexts, other societies. ठीक? It is quite another matter that UPSC has asked you, apply Merton's theory of deviance to explain the traffic problem in urban India. ठीक है? जाओ लड़ लो UPSC से. क्या ही कर सकते हैं. So we will have to fit Merton's framework to understand traffic problems in urban India if such a question comes. And how we do that, we'll try to approach that when we discuss. Second, Albert Cohen. He says that Merton's theory is not adequate to, or it does not help us explain non-utilitarian crime. Merton's theory does not help us to understand non-utilitarian crime. Meaning what? Utilitarian crime क्या होगा? That which is of any utility or benefit to the criminal. Does Merton's theory explain utilitarian crime? For example, if I rob a bank, can you explain that behavior using Merton's theory? Yes, you can. Why? Why have I robbed a bank? Because the society compels you to, or it tells you to pursue what goal? To become rich. But the institutionalized means are not available easily for me because I come from a poor background. So I will try to become rich using robbery or thievery, whatever. Right? So Merton's theory does help you to understand utilitarian crime, but does not help us to understand or explain non-utilitarian. Non-utilitarian crime क्या हुआ? That which is of no utility or seeming benefit to the criminal. For example, vandalism. You may have seen in India also, a lot of times hooligans would vandalize public property. तोड़ फोड़ कर देंगे, बसेस जला देंगे. बस चोरी करता हूं तो समझ आता है, मेरा फायदा है. Merton's theory can explain it. But अगर मैं बस जला ही रहा हूं, क्यों जला रहा हूं? How does that benefit me? Are you with me? Merton's theory is not an adequate framework to understand non-utilitarian crime. Clear? Nextly, may I? Cloward and Olin. Cloward and Olin they point out that Merton's theory does not take into account, लिख लो पहले, Merton's theory does not take into account या does not consider unequal access to the illegitimate opportunity structure. Merton's theory of deviance does not take into account unequal access to the illegitimate opportunity structure. What do we mean by this? See, Merton's theory does take into account unequal access to the legitimate opportunity structure. It does take into account. What do you mean by legitimate opportunity structure? The structure that is there for a person to become rich through legitimate or societally approved means. Legitimate opportunity structure को Merton क्या बोलता है? The institutionalized means. So Merton's theory does take into account that those who don't have access to the legitimate opportunity structure, they will innovate. That's what he says. They will use other means. But he does not take into account unequal access to the illegitimate opportunity structure. Meaning what? Even to do wrong, you need resources, you need opportunities, you need a conducive environment, which people may not have equally. Are you with me? So depending on whether you have access to the क्या बोलते हैं इसको, illegitimate opportunity structure will also determine whether you take up to deviant behavior or crime, or you don't, on what kind of deviant behavior you will exhibit. For example, simply, say there is a person coming from a poor, disadvantaged background. A boy, 18 years old, coming from a poor and disadvantaged background in Bengaluru. Another boy, also similarly poor and disadvantaged background in Mumbai. Which of them is more likely to end up as an underworld don? Mumbai. Yeah, because Mumbai is the city of dons. Yes or no? So you can join a underworld gang and whatever, get the requisite training and blah blah. Are you with me? Bengaluru, in contrast, doesn't have a flourishing underworld. Are you with me? So unequal access to the illegitimate opportunity structure will also determine what kind of deviant behavior one exhibits. Yes or no? Similarly, there is a poor, disadvantaged person in Chandigarh, another poor, disadvantaged person in Bihar. Which of them is more likely to become a kidnapper? The Bihari. Why? Because there is a thriving kidnapping industry in Bihar. Yes or no? You will get training, katta, or the local pistol cheaply. Yes or no? Connivance of the police force and so on and so forth. In Bihar, which you are unlikely to get that conducive atmosphere for attaining success through illegitimate means in, say, a Chandigarh. Clear? इसी तरह a failed and unsuccessful person in, say, your XYZ. Okay? In, say, go somewhere, no? Wherever. In blah blah. Tell me some nice city, no? Hyderabad. Okay? And then you have in another similarly failed, unsuccessful person after a lot of tries in Punjab, who's more likely to take to drugs? क्यों? क्योंकि उड़ता Punjab, right? So there you have free-flowing drugs, easy availability, and so on and so forth. These many examples should suffice to tell us that, and what is more important possibly while studying deviance? Access to the illegitimate opportunity structure. Yes or no? क्या कुकर्म करोगे? ये निर्भर करेगा क्या कुकर्म आपका वातावरण फैसिलिटेट कर रहा है. ठीक? Which Merton does not take into account. Clear? May I? Another criticism of Merton's theory of deviance is that he does not, or he downplays the importance of psychological factors in his explanation of deviance. He explains it using social factors alone, society and culture. He does not take into account, or he downplays the importance of psychological factors in his theory of deviance. Critics argue an analysis of psychological factors is important. After all, not all persons who fail take to drugs or alcoholism, but some do. Yes or no? So what should explain why some members of a particular category are exhibiting deviant behavior while most others are doing what? Are conformists. For that you have to delve into the psyche, which Merton conveniently avoids. ठीक. Another, लिख लिया नहीं, ignores or downplays psychological factors. Another criticism, friends, is that Merton's theory is not a good framework to explain, or is not a suitable framework to explain white collar crime. What is white collar crime? White collar crimes are crimes committed by सफेद पोशाक लोग, literally, but by middle class and upper middle class, upper class people. Those who are educated, oftentimes professionals, like doctors and lawyers and मतलब managers and administrators and auditors and accountants and so many. Now, friends, if you analyze or look at white collar crime, the magnitude is huge. Yes or no? But the jails are populated by who? The rich or the poor? The poor, the lower class. Clearly, there are class differentials. In other words, the rich and the middle class, even if they commit crimes, they go scot-free, unpunished. Theoretically, the law is equally applicable to all. But in terms of its actual application, who bears the brunt of the law? It is the lower classes. And the upper classes, the middle classes, for all their misdeeds, illegalities, they literally go scot-free. कितने आपने देखे हैं engineers या auditors या accountants in jails? Hardly. Are you with me? So there is unequal application of the law. Due to different amounts of power and money these different social groups enjoy. गरीब 5 रुपए की चोरी करेगा, he will languish in the prison. And अमीर 5,000 करोड़ की चोरी करेगा या गड़बड़ी करेगा and will still manage to go scot-free. Yes or no? Which theory you think, or which perspective will highlight these class inequalities and power differentials in the application of law? Marxist theory. Marxist sociologists, Marxist criminologists highlight these differentials in power, in wealth, which also determine who is branded or regarded as a criminal and who is not. And these dimensions of different power and wealth are ignored in Merton's analysis. ठीक? These are some criticisms and limitations of Merton's theory of deviance. There are a couple of questions online. One question is, what is the difference between cults and sects? So we have not yet reached that topic. We will reach it. We will discuss sects and cults when we come to religion, the unit on religion. First I'll discuss, then still if this doubt persists, I'll be happy to address it. What is labeling theory and self-fulfilling prophecy? Now labeling theory is another theory of deviance, right, which we may not need to get into, or if at all I will address it at some later point of time. Perhaps, when we take up, say, a discussion on homosexuality or something. Okay? And also it is out of the bounds of our syllabus. Self-fulfilling prophecy, again, it's like a concept given by Merton, but now it has become a part of popular lingo. Self-fulfilling prophecy means that because you predict something, or you prophesize. Prophecy matlab to predict something. Because something has been predicted, it comes true. For example, in a lot of, regarding educational outcomes, to explain educational outcomes, this concept is used. Simply, if in a classroom, a teacher tells a particular student, you're a duffer, you're a duffer, you're a duffer, what will happen to his performance? It will start dipping. It will have an adverse impact on his self-confidence and his self-perception, and his overall scores will see a dip. And then what will the teacher say? Kaha tha na maine, you're a duffer, hence proved. Are you with me? This is in the nature of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Care, but it was just an aside. अब चलते हैं जीवन में आगे, with your permission. चलो चलते हैं फिर जीवन में आगे. Moving on, because we have a fair agenda for the day. Moving on to the next thinker, namely Shri Karl Marx. What do we know already about him? Any inkling, anything, anywhere we've come across anything about Marx in bits and pieces in simple bhasha? Okay, so he's thrown one word, capitalism. Okay, so we can say Marx does analyze capitalism very thoroughly. And is he critical of it or appreciative? Broadly, very critical of it. Talks almost exclusively about economy, or the focus of his analysis is economy. The Communist Manifesto. क्या कहता है उसमें? And what needs to be done? It's also a program for action. हाँ, ठीक है. और बताइए. ठीक है. So another concept, very popular Marxist concept, is that of alienation. What does it mean? If any inkling? समाज से जुदा होना, to be cut off from the society. That too, that is one dimension of it. But that is not what alienation is in essence. Society is divided into how many classes? Mainly 2 classes. Or brother? So he says something that economy is the base of the society and the other aspects of social life are the superstructure. Good enough. So friends, Karl Marx, time period is this, 19th century figure. Janab was born in Germany, or the Prussian state. He was a citizen of the Prussian state. एक तब होता था एक country by the name of Prussia, which was a part of or sub whatever entity within Germany, the German kingdom. ठीक है? So yes, he was, and he was writing in German. Anything and any inkling about his family financial background, because it's all about the money after all. Marx's writings is all about economy. Like rich या poor कैसे परिवार से आते थे श्री कार्ल मार्क्स. That is correct. So Marx Senior was a lawyer, as rightly pointed out, and he had changed his religion from Judaism to Christianity. They were like, he was born a Jew but became Christian. But he was not middle class. He was quite wealthy. Shri Karl Marx came from a very wealthy and very, very comfortable kind of a background. Marx himself was a student of which subject? Law. Correct. He studied law and later on he gravitated towards studying philosophy. In terms of his career, if he can be said to have one, how did he earn money? He was most of his earnings, and the earnings were somewhat meager, modest, were from journalism. So he was a journalist. He used to write articles for newspapers. And but he did not earn much from journalism. A more steady source of income for Karl Marx was the beneficence of his friend, cum co-author, Friedrich Engels. उनके पैसों पे मार्क्स काफी जिए, पैसे के कॉन्सेप्ट की बुराई करते करते. ठीक है. So Engels actually funded a lot of Marx's life, as it were. Also, Engels. So Marx and Engels are like Jay and Viru. Okay? They were like writing a lot of stuff together and their thoughts broadly coincide. And or kya? He came from a fairly very comfortable background. His father was a reputed lawyer and they owned vineyards and stuff. Okay? Marx was quite this thing during his college days. This thing yani Rangeen. He, for instance, was the co-president of the college drinking society. Okay? And not a very brilliant student, but yeah, he had a line of thinking of his own. He was very well read, but he was not a very top tier kind of a student. And he was like born in Germany, but he wrote vehemently against the government. So he was thrown out. So he shifted to Paris. From there he shifted to another country. I think it was Belgium or somewhere. From there he shifted to England. And that was his final resting place, where he spent a good number of his years and died also in England. Okay? And he died a stateless person. Stateless matlab, he had no citizenship. Okay? Without a state or without a country. Very few people would die stateless. Marx was one such person. In sociology, we regard him as one of the founding fathers of the discipline. 19th century guy writing, in the context of the Industrial Revolution, analyzing the problems, the works. Right? So we regard him as one of the founding fathers of the discipline of sociology. But Marx's influence is not confined to the discipline of sociology. his influence in academia spans far wider than the narrow confines of sociology. So Marx was also an economist as much as he was a sociologist. He is a sociologist because he undertook a detailed analysis of society. But he was equally, in equal measure, an economist, in equal measure a philosopher, in equal measure a historian, also a journalist, and a revolutionary. Marx's writings, friends, have affected substantially, there is an indelible imprint of Marx's writings, not just in sociology, but across the social sciences. You can see the imprint of Marx in fields as diverse as archaeology and anthropology, art, culture studies, literature, political science, history. जैसे ना, we have something called Marxist sociology. We've discussed functional sociology. Now we'll be talking about Marxist sociology. Similarly, you have Marxist political science. You have Marxist economics, Marxist philosophy, even Marxist geography. I was very surprised to know that. कि layers rocks में क्या लगाते होंगे कि inequality हो रही है. ठीक है? But there is something called Marxist geography. There is Marxist theater, Marxist linguistics, Marxist media studies, Marxist criminology. ठीक है, कोई ऐसा domain of study नहीं है which has been unaffected by the writings of Shri Karl Marx. Again, I would say that Marx's influence is not confined to the narrow domains of academia. These people whom we've studied till now, Durkheim, Parsons, the greats of sociology, even Comte. When you compare them to Karl Marx, they are there. Okay? They are like pygmies. Bonnet. Marx's writings have not just affected academic disciplines, but the evolution of human societies itself. His writings have influenced the lives of millions of people, the day-to-day lives of millions of people across the globe, not just in one part of the globe, but across the globe. In fact, Marx is regarded as one of the three most influential human beings to have ever walked on this planet. A billion people, मतलब कितने 8 billion तो अभी जी रहे हैं, across the ages कितने जिए होंगे. He is regarded as amongst the top 3 most influential, impactful human beings to have ever lived in human history. That is the impact of Karl Marx. The other two, Jesus Christ, absolutely, and Prophet Muhammad, absolutely, ranking up there alongside Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad, who were the founders of the two biggest religious demographics globally. दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा maximum numbers are Christians, followed by Muslims. And third in terms of impact on human societies is Shri Karl Marx. इसीलिए कहते हैं that you can either be a Marxist or non-Marxist, नहीं, anti-Marxist. मतलब you can't be indifferent to Karl Marx. You either love him or you hate him, but you cannot ignore him. ठीक है? So let us try to appreciate what does Janab say in his very extensive writings. In the UPSC sociology syllabus, we have 4 topics mentioned under Shri Karl Marx, namely historical materialism, please call someone from the outside just. I need water, please. Modes of production, alienation and class struggle. Historical materialism, mode of production, alienation and class struggle. ठीक, तो जाने जनाब को. चलिए, स्टार्टिंग विथ हिस्टोरिकल मटीरियलिज्म. Historical materialism, friends, I will be discussing a lot of things, then I'll be dictating in brief also. So if you choose to, you make running notes, but I will be capturing the essence of whatever I'm saying. Okay? After a fair amount of explaining. So, historical materialism, friends, is broadly Marx's theory of history. Marx's theory of human history. How human society has evolved through the ages. Thank you. ठीक है? Now, why do we call it historical materialism? What is the significance or meaning of that? To understand that, Marx's theory of historical materialism, we need to be somewhat acquainted with the writings of Hegel. Hegel was another German philosopher who was the intellectual predecessor of Karl Marx. In other words, Marx was a self-avowed pupil of Hegel. Hegel गुरु थे, मार्क्स उनके चेले थे in intellectual terms. ठीक है? So to understand Marx, we need to understand a bit of Hegel. Mind you, Hegel is not in our UPSC sociology syllabus. So we should not get a direct question from Hegel. We need to understand Hegel only to the extent of how he influenced Marx. ठीक? Yeah? Hegel, friends, so I'll first describe or explain Hegel, a bit of Hegel, and then we will move on to Marx. Hegel, friends, was an idealist. Hegel was an idealist. Meaning what? That Hegel believed in the primacy of ideas. Hegel believed in the primacy. What do you mean by the word idealist in English? Or that, he believed in idealism. What do you mean by idealist, idealism in English? Sorry? Not practically possible. Ideal, that which is perfect or kind of somewhat that, chasing or going after the perfect thing, right? That's like idealism. which is also by implication not practical, right? That's the English meaning of the word idealism. This is not that. This is not that. Clearly get that, put that aside while understanding Hegel. Here idealism means what? That Hegel believed in the primacy of ideas, or he gave primacy to ideas. Hegel gave primacy to ideas. Meaning what? Ideas come first. Material reality is secondary. Ideas come first and material reality is a mere expression of those ideas, a mere manifestation of those ideas. He gave primacy to ideas and considered that material reality is secondary. That material reality is shaped by ideas or is merely an expression of ideas. So ideas come first. For example, somebody must have first thought of the idea of a wheel, and then the physical wheel in the material reality would have come about or would have been created. पहले विचार आता है, फिर वो एक वास्तविकता में तब्दील होता है. First we think of something and then it manifests in the material world. Clear? That is why Hegel is known as an idealist. He gave primacy to ideas, considering material reality as merely an expression of, manifestation of those ideas. ठीक? So how does society change? Due to changes in the realm of ideas. As our ideas change, so does our material reality change. Society changes with the evolution of, or with new ideas replacing old ideas. ठीक? Now, how do ideas change? I'm still with Hegel, I have not yet moved to Marx. How do ideas change? How do changes take place in the realm of ideas, which then get reflected in the material reality or society? Ideas change through the process of dialectics. Ideas change through the process of dialectics. What is dialectics? Basically, it is a method of arriving at the truth, of discovering the truth. It is a little abstract, but stay with me. Stay with Hegel. You will get some hang of it. ठीक है? जितना चाहिए उतना हमें समझ आ जाएगा. Now, what is this method of arriving at the truth? You know, it can be contrasted with another method that we call debate. Debate you all must be familiar with. What is a debate? How is truth arrived at in a debate? So you have two parties with opposite stances. One person speaks for the motion, another speaks against the motion. So the guy who speaks for the motion, he tries to rally 10 arguments in favor of why he is for the motion. Yes or no? And the guy against, he will rally 10 points why he is against the motion. And both will try to convince the jury or the audience. And then one of them is declared, whoever is more convincing, has better arguments to make their point, they are declared the winner. Clear? That is how debate takes place. We've all done in school, colleges, or seen. Dialectics, on the other hand, is a process of arriving at the truth by trying to bring together opposing ideas. By bringing together opposing ideas to create new ones. Rather than, in a debate you take entrenched positions. So the for guy will never accept an argument of the against guy. The against guy will never accept an argument of the for guy. That's what happens in a debate. तुम कहोगे नहीं वो गलत है, मैं सही हूं क्योंकि blah blah blah. Right? For example, this method was widely and very popularly used by ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. Socrates was a philosopher and a teacher. Okay? He was the guru of Plato. You know? So, what Socrates would do, how truth was arrived at. What is this method of dialectics? Say in a class, one student asks a question that, let's take up some issue ki what is the nature of the institution of marriage? Alright? So another student gets up and responds that marriage is a wonderful social institution. It is the दो आत्माओं का मिलन, दो शरीरों का मिलन, दो मनों का मिलन. Yes or no? It is the coming together of two souls. Marriage gives us companionship, sex, love, and all those wonderful things that make it a wonderful social institution. ये क्या हो गया? It happens on its own. Sorry? Fly. Wow. Very high tech. Unnecessarily. So this is one idea. Okay? This one idea is what is called the thesis. It is the original idea. Called the thesis. What is the thesis in our example? That marriage is a wonderful social institution characterized by the coming together of two souls and blah 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 blah. This is the thesis or the original idea. Then this thesis combines with its own antithesis. What is the antithesis? As the name suggests, it is the opposite idea. Whatever the thesis says, the antithesis says the opposite. And that is why it is antithesis. Right? These two opposing ideas come together to give rise to a synthesis, which is a new idea created by the coming together of these two opposing ideas. This is the dialectical process. Thesis or the original idea combines with the antithesis or the opposing idea to give rise to the synthesis or the new idea. So taking our example forward, one student says that marriage is a wonderful social institution characterized by so many nice things. But then another student raises his hand and says, absolutely not. Marriage is a horrible institution. It suppresses women. There is violence in marriage. There is forced sex in marriage. Yes or no? There is sardardi, kalesh in marriage. It makes life hell. This is what? This is the antithesis or the opposing idea. Then Socrates would say, okay, then possibly we can say that शादी वो लड्डू है जो खाए वो भी पचता है और जो ना खाए वो भी पचता है. Are you with me? मतलब combining these two seemingly incompatible or opposing ideas to give rise to a new idea. Or say in English, those who don't understand Hindi, that we can say possibly that marriage is a necessary evil. It is evil, but it is also necessary. Are you with me? So you are combining two opposing ideas to come to a, or to give birth to a new idea. This is called dialectics. It's not कि thesis वाले ने अपनी position entrench कर ली and antithesis ने अपनी, and then one of them wins. No. Combination of the two gives rise to the new idea or the synthesis. ठीक? So society changes due to changes in the realm of ideas, and these changes in ideas take place through the method of dialectics, meaning coming together of opposing ideas. Clear? The dialectical method, okay, is governed by three laws. The dialectical method is governed by three laws. As follows. The first law is the law of unity and conflict. I repeat, the first law is the law of unity and conflict of opposites. Law of unity and conflict of opposites. Simply, friends, you can see it over here. Thesis and antithesis are opposite of each other, definitionally. Yet they are uniting, yes or no, or coming together to give rise to a synthesis or a new idea. This is the law of unity and conflict of opposites. Second, the law of passage from quantitative changes the law of passage from quantitative changes into qualitative change. ठीक? Simply it means what, friends? That when things change incrementally, gradually, bit by bit, the end result can be qualitatively very different from what you began with. Small, incremental, quantitative changes can result in qualitatively different outcomes. Clear? That's yes or no? Yes, we can give examples. For example, and this exam is referred to by several scholars, including Engels and Hegel himself. When you put water on a stove and you light the stove, you put water in a vessel, put it on a stove, and you light the stove. Say the water is cold. What happens to the water when you, straight away boils? No. Sorry? So first it will its temperature will rise, the heat content in the water will rise. These are what? Incremental quantitative changes. The quantity of heat in the water will increase by and by. And at a certain point of time, what will happen? Water will transform into steam or vapor. So it changes from one state of matter to another, from liquid to gases. This is a qualitative change. Are you with me? So small incremental changes in the quantity or amount of heat in water resulted in the water transforming into a qualitatively different entity, from a liquid state to a gaseous state. Clear? Another example, if you've seen any child, okay, if you have a child at home, when the child was 3 years and when the child was 3 years and 1 day, was he very substantially different? No. Then when he was 3 years and 2 days, what is happening with each passing day? There are gradual, incremental, quantitative changes in the child, but over a period of time. When you see that child after 10 years at the age of 13 from 3, what those incremental changes have resulted in? A qualitatively different outcome. So a 3-year-old infant is very different from a 13-year-old man boy. Yes or no? So incremental small changes combine together to produce qualitatively different outcomes. Clear? The third law, friends, is the law of negation of negation. The law of negation of negation. Negation meaning what? That every subsequent stage comes about after destroying the previous stage. Right? And that previous stage itself was a result of the destruction of the stage prior to it. So how society moves on? By destroying what was previously created or what previously existed. And that previous reality was itself, or in the case of Hegel, that previous idea was itself, came out of the destruction of the idea prior to it. That is how society changes. ठीक है? These are the laws of dialectics. They may be a little abstract, but then that is the nature of philosophy. And we don't expect a direct question from Hegel, only to the extent of how they influenced Marx. Hegel's theory, to summarize, is known as dialectical idealism. Dialectical idealism. Meaning what? He applies the method of dialectics in the realm of ideas. He gives primacy to ideas. Ideas change through the dialectical method. And that is how Hegel explains changes in society as a result of changes in ideas. ठीक? Now, Shri Marx. Marx belonged to, in his youth, he belonged to a group of scholars known as young Hegelians. Young Hegelians. Young Hegelians. These young Hegelians, including Marx, were influenced by Hegel and were also very critical of Hegel. Young Hegelians, including Shri Marx, were influenced by and also critical of Hegel. In fact, to use Marx's own bhasha, his own phrase or language, Marx said, we put Hegel upside down. The young Hegelians, including Marx, put Hegel upside down. वो ऐसे खड़ा है तो उसको ऐसा कर दिया, invert कर दिया. In other words, they, in certain ways, said exactly the opposite of what Hegel was suggesting. Hegel was an idealist. Hegel gave primacy to ideas. According to Hegel, our ideas shape our material reality. Ideas are primary and material reality is merely or is secondary or merely an expression of the ideas. Marx rejected Hegel or inverted Hegel on this count. According to Marx, material reality is primary. Ideas are secondary. I repeat, according to Marx, material reality is primary. Ideas are secondary. So young Hegelians, including Bhai Sahab, Shri Karl Marx, rejected Hegel's emphasis on or primacy that Hegel gave to ideas. Marx suggests that the material reality, the realm of matter, is first and foremost. Ideas are merely, or ideas are simply shaped by the material reality. How we think is simply an outcome of our material conditions of existence. हमारे सोच, हमारे विचार, हमारी वास्तविकता पे निर्भर करते हैं. हमारी वास्तविकता से उपजते हैं. Simply put, say a teenager in a thriving city, metropolis like Delhi, Mumbai, New York, can think of stuff like video games, YouTube videos, and the like. Yes or no? Why? Because it is a part of his material reality. The world in which he is living, there exists such things, so he has thoughts on these things. Imagine a similarly aged person in the primitive tribes of, in the jungles of Africa. Can he think of video games or YouTube videos? No. What will he think of? What will be his games or leisure activities? Stuff like, whatever, climbing trees or whatever. We can't even think of because that's not a material reality. है ना? कुछ वो उसी में अपने वातावरण से वो अपने गेम्स या लेजर एक्टिविटीज बनाता होगा. Are you with me? We all belong to the first category, lived in a metropolis or whatever. In our material reality, you had stuff like video games or YouTube videos. Are you with me? So what we think is greatly influenced or determined by our material conditions of existence. जैसे हमारे हालात होते हैं, जैसे हमारी वास्तविकता होती है, वैसे हमारे विचार होते हैं. Take another way. Do rich people and poor people have similar thoughts or different? Or let us say we are middle class, okay? And Ambanis are Ambanis and Tatas. Okay, so what they think, can we even think possibly? Very difficult. Yes or no? So our material conditions of existence, our economic situation particularly, greatly will determine what our thoughts and ideas are. ठीक? So Marx and क्या नाम है तुम्हारा? Hegel. They are diametrically opposite on this count. Hegel gives primacy to ideas, considers material reality as secondary and merely an expression of ideas. Marx, on the other hand, gives primacy to material reality and considers ideas as merely an expression of or an outcome of or determined by the material conditions. Who appeals to you more? Just because he is more famous? Marx is more realistic, you are saying? Who is more widely appealing? So you are saying ideas are few and far in between. Very few people have those radical ideas who can think beyond their material conditions and make, some breakthroughs kind of. Huh? हाँ बेटा?
Actually, Marx is really saying about how society is really at a particular time, at a particular point. Whereas Hegel, he is basically predicting or sort of like thinking about a society which can be.
Sorry, but that is not the case. That's not a legitimate distinction to be drawn. With due respect, Hegel is also talking about how society has changed over the years. But according to him, it is due to changes in the realm of ideas. ठीक है? मार्क्स एक बड़ी सिंपल आर्ग्यूमेंट देता है. मार्क्स कहता है that in order to think, what is necessary? सोचने के लिए क्या चाहिए? रीजन, दिमाग, necessity, from necessity is the mother of invention wala, huh? Reference, something far more fundamental. In order to think, man must live. जियोगे तभी तो सोचोगे. In order to think, man must live. in order to live, man must eat. Yes or no? In order to eat, man must produce. जीने के लिए, सोचने के लिए जीना पड़ेगा, जीने के लिए खाना पड़ेगा, खाने के लिए उगाना पड़ेगा. So production of the necessities of life is the first historical act. To produce the basic essentials of life is the first historical act, according to Sri Karl Marx. Changes in society, according to Marx, take place due to changes in the system of production. In the system of production or in the economy. As the economy changes, the rest of the society changes. So, economy is the base of the society. The foundation, or the Marx uses the terms base. It is the base of the society. It is the foundation upon which the whole society is built. And the other aspects of social life are shaped by it. Say the family. What is the kind of family system we have? What are the laws that we have? What does religion teach you? Etc. All of it is determined by the needs of the economy. So Marx gives a lot of primacy to economic factors in his understanding or analysis of social change. As the economy changes, so does the rest of the society. And why does the economy change? Must it change? Can it not remain stagnant or same for long periods of time? Why don't use functional bhasha while discussing Marx? Why must the economy change? Due to changes in technology. Production technology is continuously improving. Continuously improving throughout human history. As technology improves, the nature of the economy changes. As the economy changes, there are changes accompanying it in other aspects of social life, such as family and political system and religion and laws and ideology, everything. Write down a sentence in quotation marks. M-A-R-K-S. You know? It is not the consciousness of man which determines his being. I repeat, it is not the consciousness of man which determines his being. Full stop. It is his social being. It is his social being which determines his consciousness. Okay? Quotes close. किसने बोला? Sri Karl Marx. Meaning what? Again, since the very same thing what we've been discussing. It is not our thoughts, not our ideas, which shape our reality. It is our material reality. It is our material conditions of existence which shape our thoughts, our ideas. So this statement basically captures the Marxist emphasis on material reality and rejection of Hegelian idealism. In this statement, Marx is categorically rejecting Hegel's emphasis on ideas and underlining his emphasis on material reality. आपके सोच आपकी वास्तविकता नहीं निर्भर करती, आपकी जो सामाजिक वास्तविकता है वो निर्भर करती है कि आपके सोच विचार कैसे होंगे, इज व्हाट मार्क्स इज सजेस्टिंग. ठीक है. While Marx rejected Hegel's idealism, replacing it with materialism. If Hegel was an idealist, Marx was a materialist, emphasizing on the material reality as primary, the realm of matter as the most important. Okay, when we say material reality, we mean the production system or the economy broadly. Okay. So Marx rejected Hegel's emphasis on ideas or his idealism, but retained the method of dialectics, applying it to the realm of material reality. Marx did not reject the Hegelian method of dialectics, but applied it to the realm of matter or material reality to explain the changes in society. I repeat, simply, Marx rejected idealism, replacing it with materialism. But Marx applied the Hegelian method of dialectics to understand or explain changes in society, applying the dialectical method to the realm of matter or material reality. How he did that, it will become clearer as we proceed. So Marx's theory is known as dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism. ठीक है. Now Marx's theory or the topic mentioned in the syllabus is historical materialism. Why do we call it historical materialism? Because he uses this framework of dialectical materialism to explain the changes in human society through the ages or through different historical periods, through different points of time. So it is also, his theory of dialectical materialism is also known as historical materialism. Clear? I repeat, Marx applies this dialectical materialist framework to explain the changes in human society through different periods of time. Or through different historical epochs. Epoch word refers to a very long period of time. In Hindi it will be translated as yug. ठीक है. So कैसे अलग अलग युगों में या अलग अलग phases of, through different stages human society has evolved. He tries to understand using the framework of dialectical materialism. Clear? So how has society changed through different historical phases? Due to changes in the material reality or changes in the economy. As the economy changes, so does the rest of the society. And economy changes due to improvements in production technology. Production technology is continuously improving, resulting in substantial changes in the economy and subsequent changes in the rest of the society. ठीक है? लिखिए. Give the heading historical materialism. Historical materialism the theory of historical materialism वो मार के the theory of historical materialism explains the transformation of society through different historical epochs. Due to changes in the economy. ठीक है? Full stop. Marxist theory is historical in single quotes. The word historical in single quotes because Marx traces the evolution of human societies from one stage to the other. ठीक है? Full stop. It is called, it क्या? His theory. It is called materialist. The word materialist in single quotes. Because Marx considers that matter or material reality is the basis for any change in society. Full stop. Thus, Marx interpreted social transformation in terms of changes in the material conditions of existence. Full stop. Next para. In Marxist theory of historical materialism, the basis of society is its economy. Full stop. The socio-political conditions, ideas, and pretty much everything is shaped by the material conditions. ठीक है? Full stop. Developments in the economy lead to changes in the society. The whole of human history, WHOLE, the whole of human history is an account of the development of new productive forces, comma, leading to changes in other areas of social life. Economy is the driving force for social change. Full stop. Next para. And before you write, you tell me, whatever little you know of Marx, what is your sense? As society changes from one stage to another, is this development progressive or regressive? क्या ये समाज में बेहतरी की तरफ हम जा रहे हैं या how will you understand progressive, regressive, right? So this change that takes place in society, from simple herds, bands to industrial capitalism, this change is regressive or progressive? Yes? This change is progressive, clearly progressive. Marx, Marx is very critical of industrial capitalism, very, very critical of industrial capitalism. He finds a lot of faults with it, much to be criticized. Yet, whatever developments have taken place to reach industrial capitalism and are taking place in industrial capitalism are progressive. Progressive in the sense they are leading to improvements in production system. It is becoming more and more efficient with the passage of time. ठीक है? तो लिखो, next para. In Marxist theory of historical materialism, the onward march of history the onward march of history is progressive. Full stop. With time, there are improvements in production technology. Transforming the economy. Transforming the economy. And the whole society. Transforming the economy and the whole society. ठीक है? Any idea what is the final stage that he envisages? नाम क्या है उस स्टेट का? Communism. The last stage in Marx's theory, we will talk about it, is communism. Now, was this establishment of communist society, was it Marx's political agenda? Was it his vision of a future egalitarian, better society? If you were to ask Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, it wasn't. It wasn't their wish, their their agenda, their vision that the communist society should be established. If you were to ask Karl Marx, he was not a political visionary. He was a scientist. They were of the firm belief, Marx and Engels both, that they are scientists. So it was their scientific prediction that communist society will be established. The way or the direction in which society is heading, the way certain changes are taking place in society, it was their scientific prediction that the capitalist society will eventually be replaced by a communist society. ठीक है? And for this, how did they identify this direction? They relied upon empirical evidence. While each of the stages they were writing about, okay, we'll discuss what those stages are. Each historical stage or each historical epoch for which they relied upon empirical evidence. ठीक है? तो लिखो. Marx and Engels considered that their theory of historical materialism is scientific. And based upon an exact description of the actual material conditions. Exact description of the actual material conditions. ठीक है? With that we take a break. Online friends, please confirm that you can see me and hear me all right by typing yes. There are a lot of yeses, so Priya, maybe the issue is at your end. Please check that. Chaliye. So you've broadly understood Marx's theory of historical materialism. Why it is historic, why it is materialistic. Yeah? So we are staying with that theory. We are not done yet. In his theory of historical materialism, Marx discusses how society has changed, passing through different historical epochs. Or with time, how society has evolved from one stage to another, as follows. The first stage is that of primitive communism. This is the first stage of human social existence. Primitive communism. During this stage, man lived in small size या large size थी? Small. So he lived in these small hordes or bands. The population size was small. What was the nature of the production technology? It was very, very rudimentary or very, very basic. It was not, man had not yet developed sophisticated tools and implements. So these were very, very rudimentary or basic tools that he used. Sharpening stones, etc. Right? To develop some implements. Or using sticks, stones, etc. Since the technology was very, very rudimentary, there was no surplus that was generated. There was no surplus that was being generated. In other words, whatever was being produced was quickly consumed. The society was producing just about enough for survival of all its members. So there was nothing extra that was remaining. There was no surplus which was getting generated. Also appreciate the man that time did not have any sort of storage technology or mechanisms in place. So nothing would last for a very long period of time. Right? So no surplus was getting generated. All members of the society during this stage were required to engage in productive labor. सब लोगों को काम करना होता था, तभी जाके पेट पाल सकते थे. ठीक है? Now, since there was no surplus getting generated, all members of the society they were equal or unequal? Were equal, or it was an egalitarian society. It was an egalitarian, classless society. Egalitarian meaning where everybody is equal. All the resources were communally owned. Communally matlab not as in Hindu Muslim wala communal. Communally here meaning by the whole community. So all the members of the community equally owned all the resources. पेड़ किसके थे? सबके थे. उन पे लगे फल किसके थे? सबके थे. भैंसा किसका था? सबका था. राइट? Here the word communism means what? Owned by the whole community. So whatever were the productive forces, whatever were the collective resources, they were owned by the whole, by all members of the community equally. ठीक है? And primitive, why? Because the level of technology was very rudimentary, basic, unevolved, not sophisticated. So it was primitive. ठीक? This was the first stage of human social existence. During this stage, there was no exploitation of man by fellow man. Production was basically, it was a subsistence level of existence. Subsistence matlab just about making ends meet or just about barely surviving. Right? So there was no surplus getting accumulated. There was no inequality in society. There was no exploitation of one human being by another. ठीक? But as production technology improves, it evolves, it becomes better. Society starts generating surplus. Surplus now starts getting generated. And the stage of primitive communism is replaced by the next historical epoch, which is ancient slave society. Ancient slave society. How did this stage come about? Due to improvements in production technology. Particularly, what new development led to this generation of surplus? The discovery of agriculture. Absolutely. Man now discovered that अगर वो बीज बोता है तो उगा सकता है. Also, man started raising livestock. There was some development of handicrafts. Now, in ancient slave society, surplus is being generated. Right? Meaning what? After filling everybody's tummies, still we are left with some output. Right? So now the question arises, whom does it belong to? Or in other words, the notion of private property emerges. Earlier, there was no concept of private property in primitive communist society. But now, the notion of private property emerges. कि ये तेरा है या मेरा है. The society sees the emergence of a leisure class. Emergence of a leisure class. Primitive communist society had how many classes? It was a classless society. But ancient slave society, you see the emergence of a leisure class. What do you understand by the word leisure? Free, वेल्ले लोग, है ना, खाली टाइम जिनके पास खूब है. Who are these people? Because now basically not all members of the society have to put in productive labor. Because the society is generating surplus as technology has improved. So not everybody is needed to put in productive labor. So कुछ लोग वेल्ले हो गए. and they claim private ownership of the surplus generated. ठीक है? The society now gets divided into two major classes. Two major classes, namely, chaliye, as you say, haves and have-nots. Who are the haves? As the name suggests, those who have. Have what? Ownership of the productive sources, the productive forces. And those who do not have ownership of the productive forces, they are have-nots. ठीक. During this, so ancient slave society is the first class society. First class society, or first time the society getting divided into two classes or strata. During the, क्या नाम है तुम्हारा? During the ancient slave period, the haves class is masters, while the have-nots are slaves. Who is the leisure class? The masters. And they are not working, so they must compel others to work and produce enough for them. Not just to survive, but also to accumulate. Right? So that is how the slavery system developed. ठीक? As now, how does the society enter the next phase? Due to improvements in production technology. सारा खेल ही उसी का है. As the production technology improves, the economy changes. With the economy, the rest of the other aspects of social life also change. ठीक है? So the next stage of human social evolution, the next historical epoch, is that of feudal society. Feudal society. Now, what technological improvements result in the emergence of the feudal society? One is that man now begins to use inanimate sources of energy. Man begins to use inanimate sources of energy such as wind and water. He starts to harness their energy. Some sort of turbines and ships or boats kind of systems. ठीक है? Also crafts that had developed in the previous epoch, they become far more specialized. Crafts become more specialized. Man begins to harness inanimate sources of energy. And there are also substantial improvements in agriculture. ठीक? So this society produces more or less of surplus. More. Since you are producing, your production technology has improved, the surplus being generated also increases. Now the society in the feudal epoch is also divided into how many classes? two major classes, namely, कौन? The feudal lords and the serfs. ठीक? Who are the haves? The lords are the haves, while the serfs are the have-nots. ठीक? As technology improves further, as production technology improves further, human society enters the next stage, which is capitalist society. Capitalist society. What changes or improvements we see in production technology resulting in the establishment of capitalism? Sorry? Absolutely. The use of machinery in the process of production. So we now develop a system of mass production using heavy machinery, assembly line kind of an arrangement. Have we discussed that? Where? The Industrial Revolution and the changes it resulted in. है ना? The amount of surplus increases or decreases? Increases. Manifold. And there are, is it a class society or a classless society? Class society, there are how many? Two main classes, namely, क्या? नहीं प्रोलेटारियत वगैरह धीरे धीरे आएंगे हम, namely factory owners and factory workers. For now, we'll use these terms. Not in the answer sheets, but for now, let's call them the owners of the factories and the workers in the factories. ठीक है? Who are the haves? The owners of the factories are the haves, while the workers are the have-nots. ठीक? And then the final stage of social evolution will be communist society. Communist society. What do you mean by communist? That the productive forces are owned by the whole community. So once again it is an egalitarian society where all men are equal. And icing on the cake, women too. Okay? That's implicit when we use the term man. Once again in society there is no notion of private property. Once again it is an egalitarian society. The distinction between the rich and the poor, the haves and have-nots, is done away with. It is again a classless society. Once again, there is no exploitation of man by fellow man. ठीक? So these are broadly the various historical stages through which human society passes. When Marx was writing, he was living in which stage? capitalist society. So communist society is his envisioning of a future, or his prediction of a future society which will replace eventually the industrial capitalist society. Okay? We are not done yet. Don't give me that flurry of pages as if like we are done. Just a few quick comments. In every stage, in every class society, yani leaving the first and the last, in all other class societies, you have two main classes, haves and have-nots. Who are in a majority numerically? Have-nots are a numerical majority, while haves are a numerical minority. Clear? Now, what is the nature of the relationship between the two main classes in every historical epoch? What is the relationship between the haves and the have-nots? Bataiye? Exploitation. Employer-employee, yeah, but what is the exact nature? Exploitation is a part of that. Sorry? Unequal. Exploitative. Absolutely. So, and Marx very graphically uses this language. He says the relationship between the haves and have-nots is a relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed, the exploiter and the exploited, the ruling class and the ruled class, the dominant class and the dominated class. ठीक है? But this is not a complete understanding of the nature of this relationship. This is how popularly and rightly it is viewed, but it's a partial understanding. We need to go beyond this. Please appreciate, between the two classes, there is a conflict of interest. The class interests of the haves and the have-nots in every historical epoch are not just different, they are incompatible with each other. They are diametrically opposite. I repeat, the class interests of the two main classes in every historical epoch are conflicting. The class interests of the two main classes, of the haves and have-nots in every historical epoch, are incompatible with each other. Meaning what? One class gains only at the expense of the other. In other words, if one class gains, the other loses. For example, in capitalism, okay, we are living in which epoch? Broadly capitalist. Okay? In capitalism, what is the class interest of the factory owners, of the capitalists? Maximizing profit. That is the sole reason why they run business, to maximize profits. And what is the class interest of the factory workers? Higher and higher wages. Now, if the wages are increased, what will happen to the profits? It will eat into the profit of the capitalist. अगर मैं वर्कर को तनख्वाह ज्यादा दे दूंगा तो मेरे हाथ में तो कम बचेगा ना, साफ बात है. And if the capitalist tries to increase profits, he will depress the wages. Are you with me? So it's like an either or kind of a situation. Both, it's either of them wins. And if one wins, the other loses. So the class interests of the two main classes in every historical epoch, of the class interests of the haves and have-nots, are incompatible. with each other. Because of which there is always a situation of conflict between the two main classes. There is always a situation of social conflict between the two main classes in society. क्या हमेशा लड़ते ही रहते हैं? नहीं. That conflict may sometimes be overt, sometimes it may be covert, sometimes it may be out for everybody to see, out in the open, sometimes it may be hidden. Are you with me? But there is always a conflict between the two main classes. Clear? We are not done just yet. इतने पेन जोर जोर की मत पटको. This aspect, Marxist theory is known as a conflict theory. This aspect of conflict between the two classes has been amply understood and emphasized upon. A much less understood aspect or less commented upon aspect of Marxist understanding of the relationship between haves and have-nots is that it is also a relationship of cooperation. It is also a relationship of mutual dependence between the two classes. So the relationship between haves and have-nots is one of cooperation and conflict. It is a relationship of cooperation and conflict, not just conflict. Why should they cooperate? They must in order to undertake production. Production cannot take place without cooperation between the haves and the have-nots. They must come together. There has to be some coordination, some cooperation between the haves and the have-nots. Only then can production take place. Yes or no? रतन टाटा अपनी फैक्ट्री में खुद तो जाके बोरियां नहीं भरेगा ना चीजों से. Are you with me? He needs the workers for that. It is a relationship of mutual dependence. Why are both classes dependent on each other? The workers are dependent on the capitalist class for wages, while the capitalists are dependent on the workers for production so that they can sell it and earn a profit. Yes or no? But please appreciate, it is not an equal relationship. It is not a relationship between equals. Who is far more dependent on the other? Workers on the capitalist. Clearly, the workers are far more dependent on the capitalist. Why? Because they are dependent for wages, which are necessary for their very survival. The capitalist, his profits will get affected, but his very existence is not threatened if the workers don't cooperate. Are you with me? So it is an unequal relationship. It is clearly a relationship between unequals. Between exploiter or exploited, oppressor or oppressed, powerful or powerless. Okay? So we say that the relationship between the haves and have-nots is one of antagonistic cooperation. It is a relationship of antagonistic cooperation. Antagonistic as in they are opposed to each other. There is a fundamental conflict of interest between the two classes, yet they cooperate. right? So it's a relationship of cooperation as well as conflict, or it's a relationship of antagonistic cooperation. Do you see the law of union of opposites at play here? In the material realm. So the capitalist class and the working class, the factory owners and the factory workers, they are antagonistic. Their class interests are diametrically opposite and incompatible. Yet they come together or cooperate in order to undertake production. ठीक है? इसी तरह we will identify the other two laws as well as we proceed. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. हाँ बेटा. प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम या इकोनॉमी. चाहिए नहीं, ऐसी बनेगी. कम्युनिस्ट सोसाइटी आएगी. कई लोग ये कहते हैं, उनके क्रिटिक्स ही कहते हैं, उनका भी तो आइडिया ही था. हाँ हाँ, नहीं आप सही कह रहे हो. कई उनके क्रिटिक्स यही कहते हैं, उनके भी तो आइडियाज ही थे. ले दे के मार्क्स की बात. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. दैट इज वन ऑफ द लेजिटिमेट क्रिटिसिज्म्स ऑफ कार्ल मार्क्स. कैसे रीच किया हमने बताया, पर कैपिटलिज्म कम्युनिस्ट में इसमें क्या अंतर